Hello and welcome to part 1 in our academic English course. In this lesson we will build a strong foundation for academic communication, focusing on how to write, speak and think in clear, formal and an objective way. Academic English is very different from everyday English, and it's not about using difficult words. It's about being precise, logical and respectful for evidence, for example. By the end of this lesson, you will understand what it takes to write and speak to sound academic, and you'll begin to apply that in your own style and your own work. We will talk about academic style a little bit more later, but what we mean by this is formal, factual, and evidence-based. In academic writing, we avoid emotional or casual expressions. For example, instead of saying, I think technology is good, we might say technology plays a significant role in improving communication and research efficiency. This change makes the sentence sound more professional because it focuses on facts, not personal opinions. Now, based off this, we are going to be aiming at a high level of English proficiency. We are looking at the C1, C2 level. You should be pretty much fluent, but want to improve your vocabulary, your grammar, and be able to use it in an academic setting. Now, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to recognize features of formal academic language, use appropriate grammar and vocabulary in academic contexts, write structured academic paragraphs and discuss academic topics using clear, formal language. We will do this with a lot of practice. We also have worksheets available. If you have signed up for the course, you'll have access to all of this already. Or if you sign up to Simple-ESL, you'll also have access to the worksheets. But we'll introduce the academic style. So throughout today's lesson, we are going to explore how to use academic vocabulary and connect it to ideas with complex sentences, and apply grammar structures that make your writing sound more sophisticated. We will also review common mistakes and practice improving them. By the end of today, you will have the tools to write with confidence and accuracy in academic contexts. Now, academic style focuses on clarity, objectivity, and evidence. It avoids emotional or casual language. So, for example, I think technology is good. We would not say this in an academic context. We need more information. Technology plays a significant role in improving communication and research efficiency. We are showing what technology does. We're taking that information and we're adding more information based on evidence and removing emotional or casual language. Now, how can we do this? We can use formal synonyms. So informal, we're going to turn to academic. Okay, so we're going to turn the informal into academic. Now, get can become obtain or acquire. So instead of I am going to get my pen, we could say I'm going to acquire my pen. If we're thinking about an idea or a concept, we could consider or we could evaluate an idea. So we can use this language to show, not just think about, we're going to consider, evaluate. Much better level of language, showing a good mastery of the English language. There are a lot of questions. We can say there's a large amount of questions, or there's a lot of data. There's a large amount of data. There are numerous ideas. Instead of a lot of ideas, numerous ideas. And I want to show you my results, what I've learned, show you the results. I could demonstrate my ideas, or I could illustrate ideas. So we can see here how this vocabulary changes what we're trying to say. It sounds more formal, very good for that sort of setting, especially in an education setting. Can be used in a workplace as well. Say you have an interview, you can use language like this in one of these situations. Now, we're looking here at subordinating conjunctions. What are they? They're used to make complex sentences. So subordinating conjunctions are words that connect a dependent clause, an incomplete idea, to an independent clause, a complete idea. So they show the relationship between the two ideas, such as cause and effect, contrast, time, or condition. So we do have some examples here. We have a contrasting subordinate conjunction. We can use although, though, even though, whereas, while. And these are used to show contrast between ideas. So although data is limited, it supports the hypothesis. So it shows contrast between two ideas that seem opposite. We can have cause and reason. So because, since, as. It explains why something is happening. Okay? So we could say because the results were inconsistent, the experiment was repeated. So the cause, the inconsistency, the effect, we're going to repeat. What about condition? Condition would be like if, unless, provided that. So it shows something must happen first in order for the next thing to happen. So if the experiment is successful, we will move on to the next step. Unless the experiment is successful, we will not move on to the next step. It shows condition, something must happen first to go to the next step. We can talk about time, when, before, after, while, until. This shows when something happens. So when the results come back, we will have a better understanding. Okay, so we can use that to show that when something happens at a certain time, when, before, after, while, until, once that occurs, we will continue and something will happen. We have purpose or result. So examples, so that, in order that. This explains the purpose of the result. So that future research can be done, we need to show our findings. So we need the result, the purpose, to continue. A subordinating conjunction creates a complex sentence. The clause at the beginning with the conjunction is dependent. It cannot stand alone. The main idea is independent and gives the full meaning. So, although the study was small, by itself, this does not give us a lot of information. Although the study is small, we need the next part. It gave valuable insight. Okay, so that independent clause finishes the sentence and gives it the full meaning. So examples, although data was limited, by itself that means nothing. It supports the hypothesis. So we have the independent and the dependent clause. The results indicate that further research is required. Another great example. So let's join these ideas using subordinating conjunctions. The theory is new. It has strong evidence. How could we join these together? The theory is new. It has strong evidence. So we could say, although the theory is new, it has strong evidence. Let's try another one. The results were mixed. The study was repeated. Try and think of an example. What could you use here? What sort of clause could you use or conjunction could you use? Because the results were mixed, the study was repeated. It had an effect. because this happened, we had to do this. The sample size was small, the findings were reliable. Even though the sample size was small, the findings were reliable. If you're struggling to find the right conjunction, do have another look at that table that we just looked at and look at the uses when these clauses, these conjunctions are used. Researchers completed the survey. They had limited funding. So we could say while the researchers had limited funding, there was something that was an issue. They still managed to complete it. They completed the survey. The data was completed from or collected from one institution. It represents a national trend. Although the data was collected from one institution, it represents a national trend. Okay, so reading and understanding task here. I would like us to read a short text. And what we're hoping to do here is I want you to use critical reading and clear thought. Okay? Effective academic writing requires critical reading and clear organization. Skilled writers analyze arguments, evaluate evidence, present ideas logically. What I want you to do is identify keywords, and I would like you to tell us what two key skills are mentioned. Critical reading and clear organization are the two skills required. Okay, what makes writing effective in this passage? So why is this useful? The writing is effective when it analyzes arguments, evaluates evidence, and presents ideas logically. This is what we want to pull from this text. In an academic setting, you need to be able to read and you need to be able to think and create your own ideas. So being able to look at a short text like this and understand the main points will be very important when it comes to your studies. So with that in mind, let's build up our academic verb base. Let's do some vocabulary practice. So to analyze means to examine something carefully or in detail. The researcher analyzed the data to identify patterns in student performance. Demonstrate. To demonstrate means to show clearly through evidence or examples. The results demonstrate that regular feedback improves academic achievement. Establish. Prove or confirm something is true. The study established a strong link between motivation and academic success. Evaluate. Judge the quality or importance of something. The essay evaluates different approaches to teaching and critical thinking. Highlight. Draw attention to or emphasize something. So to highlight something, the report highlights the need for greater investment in educational technology. We're going to do a gap fill exercise here. We're going to use the academic verbs that we just learned. Try and use the best one. There are multiple answers that can be used. I'm going to give you my examples. The study, the importance of early research planning. The study highlights the importance of early research planning. We could say demonstrates the importance of early research planning, but I like highlights there. Researchers must, whether their sources are reliable. We could use demonstrates again, must demonstrate, must establish, but I like evaluate. Researchers must evaluate whether their sources are reliable. The findings, a clear connection between diet and performance. So we could say establish, we could say demonstrate. Establish is my favorite there. findings establish a clear connection between diet and performance. The author, the key differences between two theories. Could say highlights the key differences between two theories. The author analyzes. They're very analytical, so analyzes the key differences between two theories. And the report demonstrates the benefits of collaboration. We could use those verbs interchangeably with a lot of these answers, but these are the ones that I like. Now, understanding lectures. When listening to lectures, what do we need to do? We need to focus on key arguments, but don't get hung up on every single word. Listen for signal words as well. For example, firstly, however, in conclusion. So you can also take note of examples and that support the speaker's idea. Okay, so listen or read a short lecture transcript and identify the main ideas. I would recommend using TED Talks on YouTube. Watch these and see how much you can understand. Focus on the key argument and listen for those signal words. Firstly, however, in conclusion, and know that this is something that's going to be important to write down. And speaking of writing, we're having a writing focus here on paragraph structure. Academic paragraphs are organized into one central idea. So the structure, we would have topic sentence, introduce the main idea. Supporting sentences, explain or provide evidence. And then concluding sentence, summarize or links to the next point. My example, universities play a central role in innovation. The topic, universities and their role. They provide space for collaboration, research and experimentation, allowing knowledge to expand across disciplines. So the supporting sentence and a little bit of a conclusion. So why not try and build your own academic sentences, paragraphs, using this structure? Looking at hedging language, what is hedging in academic writing? Hedging means using cautious or careful language to show something is probable rather than certain. In academic writing, we don't always want to make absolute statements. Instead, sometimes we want to show awareness that results or interpretations may have limits. So why would writers use hedging? To sound balanced and objective rather than opinionated. To acknowledge uncertainty in research or data, and to avoid generalizing or making claims that aren't credible. Now, how can we use hedging language? We can use modal verbs. For example, may, might, could, can. We could use verbs of caution, seem, appear, suggest, indicate. Adverbs like possibly, likely, generally, apparently. Or phrases like it is possible that, the evidence suggests that, it appears that. So for example, it seems that the data supports the theory. That's a verb of caution. This could suggest a possible relationship between the variables. Use of modal verbs. It is likely that the test will be positive. The adverb. The evidence suggests that this will have a good result. Once again, using one of the phrases. So we can use hedging language to sound like when we're open to ideas or we're not completely certain. Now, I would like you to use the hedging language and write your own sentences. And I have some examples here. So here's our original. The new policy improves student performance. How could we change this? Could you use any adverbs? Could you use anything else to make it sound more uncertain? The new policy appears to improve student performance. Technology makes learning easier for everyone. Technology may make Technology may make learning easier for many students. The study proves that online education is more effective. The study suggests that online education could, so we have suggests and could, be more effective. Group projects always lead to better results. Group projects tend to lead to better results in most cases. Adding on that phrase, in most cases, we're showing that it's not 100%, but we're hedging ourselves. A phrase we use is hedging our bets. So sitting on the fence is another idiom for this. We're not going either way. We're just going to show that I've got a balanced approach. Motivation is the only factor that affects academic success. Motivation is likely to be one of several factors. Okay, so that's hedging. We use this to sound balanced, to acknowledge uncertainty, and to make our claims seem more credible. So common academic mistakes. So we want you to avoid using contractions. Don't use do not. Don't is a little bit too informal. I would say use do not. Repetition of simple words. Stop saying good. Okay? Stop saying things like bad. What else could we say? Could say awful, terrible. Could we say fantastic, excellent. Long sentences without punctuation. Use your commas, use your full stops. Generalizations without evidence. You will always be asked to provide evidence to back up your thinking. So, a lot of people think that education is good. How can we make this sentence better? We could use more vocabulary. Many scholars argue that education provides significant social and economic benefits. And what else can we use to help build up these sentences? We can use linking devices. What are they? Linking devices, also known as connectors or transition words, are words and phrases used to connect ideas logically. Usually we can use in academic writing and speaking, hence why it's in this lesson. They help the reader follow your argument and understand how one idea relates to another. So it makes your writing more cohesive and it flows smoothly. It will help you to show relationships. For example, adding, contrasting, and showing cause and effect. They make arguments sound structured and professional. So how can we connect ideas? With addition, adding. We can use furthermore, moreover, in addition. My example, furthermore, the study highlights the importance of collaboration. Contrast, however, on the other hand, whereas. The experiment was successful, however, the sample size was small. And cause and effect. So this is something where something has changed the effect. So we're going to go, therefore, consequently, as a result. The funding increased, therefore, more participants were recruited. So use these linking devices, however, moreover, therefore, as a result, and fill in the gaps. The sample size was small, the findings were still significant. So we've overcome something. So however, the report highlights gender inequality in education. It suggests strategies for improvement. What would be the best answer? Moreover is a good answer here. The report highlights gender inequality in education. Moreover, in addition to, it suggests strategies for improvement. The data collection was delayed. The publication was postponed. This has had an effect, hasn't it? So we're going to say therefore. Say as a result as well would be a great answer here, but I've used therefore. Data collection was delayed, therefore the publication was postponed. The university introduced more scholarships. More international students applied this year. As a result, so our last one there to say there's an effect. So we need to use these connectors in different situations. It makes things seem smoother and more cohesive, and we can use them to show if we're the relationship, if we're adding something, contrasting something, or showing cause and effect. Let's take a look at collocations now. So this is a bit of an extension, a bit more vocabulary. What are collocations? These are words that naturally go together in English. They sound right to a native speaker because they are commonly used together. If you change one of the words, it might still be grammatically correct, but it can sound unnatural. So some examples of natural and unnatural. We can go to those in a moment, but I'd like to show you some common collocations here. Conduct research. This means to carry out or perform an investigation or study. The professor conducted research. Draw conclusions. So to draw conclusions, to make a judgment or decision after analysing information. So reviewing the data, the researchers drew several conclusions, or drew conclusions. We can say address an issue, to deal with or discuss a problem or question. The report addresses the issue. So it's phrases that are commonly used together. They make you sound more fluent in English. They can help you write and speak in a more academic, professional way. And they show that you understand how the words are used in context, not just their meaning. I almost forgot to give you your examples of common collocations. So I'll give you the unnatural and the natural way to say it. So to make research. Technically correct, but sounds wrong. We would say conduct, carry out research. To say a presentation. Technically correct. I'm saying a presentation now. To give a presentation. Much better. There was a big improvement. That one is fine. That's fairly good. A big improvement. But we could say a significant improvement. To do a decision. Technically correct, but sounds wrong. We'd say make a decision. Strong rain. That can be used. It's raining right now. We're in the UK. Strong rain, we'd say heavy rain. So this is something that you need to work on yourselves, and you'll pick up with time and practice. It doesn't always make sense because strong rain, for example, that is correct. Make research. But no native speakers will say it this way, or very few will. You'll sound much more fluent if you can say heavy rain, conduct research, give a presentation. And we're going to move on to the passive voice in academic writing. When do we use it? So the passive voice is used when we focus on an action or result, not on who performed it. In academic writing, this makes sentences sound objective, formal, and impersonal, which is useful when the writer wants to highlight research, not the researcher. Okay, so it's when the research is more important than the person who has done the research. So it focuses on the process or results rather than the people. It makes writing sound more formal, and it avoids using repetition of the word we or the researcher. The data was collected using 2 surveys. Much better than we collected the data using 2 surveys. We then did this, we then did that. So it can be used for making, often used for writing objectives. If you use the passive form, it would be be plus the past participle. The researchers analysed the samples becomes the samples were analysed by researchers, but the samples were analysed. The committee reviewed the report. The report was reviewed. By who? By the committee. If we have the knowledge and we know who has carried out the work, then we don't need to do this and we can use the passive. The data was collected using 2 surveys. The hypothesis was tested under controlled conditions. The participants were selected from 3 universities, for example. And that has brought us to the end of our first session in what is going to be a 9-part course. It's going to be released onto the YouTube channel, but if you want access to the worksheets, you will have to sign up onto the Patreon page. It will also give you earlier access to these courses as they come out. So a great way to stay up to date. And if you like money off tutoring, go to all my links, go to our Patreon page, you'll find our worksheets and links there. In this lesson, we have covered academic style and formal vocabulary. We've done sentence structuring and hedging. We've done some reading and writing for clarity, speaking with precision and confidence. What I'd like you to reflect on is which of these skills do you need to practice more in the next week? And a bit of a homework task for those who are not signed up to the Patreon. Write a short paragraph, 80 to 100 words, responding to this question. Should universities make attendance mandatory for all students? Use formal academic language and structured writing. Include one example to support your view. We always want those examples. Hopefully you have found this helpful and useful at the C1, C2 level as we continue to expand what we are offering on the channel. And we're aiming here at that high level of language speaking. So hopefully we're going to give you lots of ideas and things to practice. We look forward to seeing you in the next lesson and part 2 of this course.